don't chase truth like they chase acceptance, validation, approval, and all the things that we're chasing. But I found out that fundamentally, people don't chase truth. And your liberation and transformation start from the acquired truth. And that's why the good book said, thou shalt know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And so if you're not free in any part of your life, whether you are resentment, whether it's anger, whether you're feeling discouraged, whether you feel cheated in life, whether you feel unacceptable, whether you feel rejected, non-valued, the truth is that you lack fundamental truth. Don't chase the solution, chase the truth. Truth will give you calmness. Truth will give you inner light, inner guidance. And truth will eventually rescue you. In all that you are going to pursue, whether you have migraine, whether you have backlog of blames, disappointment, whether you think that your spouse is running you mad. No, sometimes it's not your spouse. It's not your boss. It's not the economy. Really, it's not your neighbor. It's not the village. It is a fundamental truth. Because once you get a fundamental truth, which is a principle of life, that will give you. Of course, he said, whatever a man sow, that's what you're going to reap. Because anything happening around you is a fundamental thing from inside. And one of the things I want to be able to play how it's going to work today is there's what I call the mental self, there's what I call the spirit self, and that's what I call the matter self. And it's these three harmony. When there's a harmony within these three space, that's when you find life. So, but let me take it easy. If you are stressed, if you are unsettled, if you are not stable in your life, if you have lacked confidence, if you have lacked creativity, if you have lacked some level of relaxation, you are not at peace with yourself. One of the things that we're going to be cracking is to find your truth. When I find my truth, what I call the working truth, it reshaped my thinking, structured my thinking. I don't need to clear my head. I have clarity. I don't need to live out of balance. I'm balanced. You don't need to be, like unstable. You're stable. We need to find our working truth. Thou shalt know the truth, and the truth that you know will set you free. So if anywhere you feel like a slave to life, bondage, you feel incapacitated, you feel that you are limited, go and check. There's a fundamental issue with truth. And people think, oh, I know the truth. And I always say that any truth that make you to be angry is not truth. Because anger means that you have been overtaken. Resentment, that means you've been overtaken. Regret means that you have been taken by the past. Heartbreak and you are depressed, it means you have been consumed, so you are not free. You see why freedom is so important. And freedom comes through awareness. Let me say that again. True freedom comes through awareness. Awareness of what? Awareness of the truth. If you're not doing well in your job, what you lack is not compatibility of your spouse or your boss. It is a fundamental issue of truth, working truth. Working truth is an instrument or a tool that if you begin to acquire it, you will find that your higher awareness begin to upsurge. You are able to stand tall with your life and confidence will surge. Once you have established working truth, because your freedom is rest on your working truth, what it does is it gives you what we call energy. Energy is something that if you understand how it works, you cannot flow in a certain frequency because you see, there are three realms that we work and three levels. First of all, the frequency. It's typical like if you have a channel on a TV, you know that every frequency has its own peculiarity and uniqueness. Like if you a lover of music and you have 20 channels, each of those 20 channels will create a frequency that you're operating. And now, how you know? Have you noticed that once you tune in into any frequency, the direct impact it does is it changes your view, which is your outlook and your perspective and your perception. What it does, it will impact on your thinking pattern. It structures directly how you think. That's why you see, so that frequency will impact on your perspective, it will impact on your thinking pattern. You begin to create a certain belief structure which will create a reality. And that's why you see, if you're watching a movie, a certain movie, maybe a horror movie or a romantic movie, then something that it starts giving you an imagination. Before you know it, either you're crying or you're sad. It's not happening to you, but it has become your reality. That's about the power of frequency, and which I mean you vibrate on. Vibrate means you start thinking and believing around. So if you want to change anything in your life, go and check where you're connected to, the frequency you're connected to. Have you noticed there are people that want to come around you, you begin to misbehave? Why? They bring you to a certain frequency and you start vibrating. Now, how you know is the result is the energy. Energy is life. Energy is life. That's the feeling. That's where emotions are. So if you're feeling sad now, you have tuned into a frequency. So that's why you need to study energy. I mean, that's not where I am today. We have what they call female energy. We have what we call male energy. And you see, most times people are struggling in their relationship because they don't understand the energy system. Because your husband or your spouse or your boss could have what they call male energy. Male energy becomes they are ambitious. They have no time for compassion. They are not meek at all. They are go-getters. Everything has to be logical. Everything has to make sense. But you see, a female energy is a tenderer. It's soft. It's open. It takes risk. Male energy, they don't take risk. It has to be logical. It has to be profitable. It has to be something that makes sense to them. But in female energy, it may not make sense, but a high risk here. So now, if your frequencies and your vibration are not in compatibility, then you realize that you are always in a poor energy. Have you noticed that there are places once you get in an office or probably in a house, or even people sometimes is the color of a room, or some that bring that. So if you study truth and you study energy, what it does is economy. And economy, there are three things about economy. Economy doesn't just talk about money. It talks about resources. Economy is resources. Your mental resources, your emotional resources, your identity resources, your psychological resources, your spiritual resources. So see, because these things are not understood, so we don't know how to manage our resources. Number one, the first resource you have is yourself. And if you don't understand that you are the resource, then you're already a failure. And that's why people have low esteem. That's why people are slaves. That's why people are beggars. That's why people are chasing. That's why people are fundamentally in a depressed state, because you don't understand that you are a resource. So I wake up, I know that I'm a resource. That's the first fundamental resource. And that resource has to be, first of all, a localized result. Now, in that localized resource, it has to be beneficiary. If you are not beneficiary to yourself, you have lost the initial resource. And that's why you see people can make you upset. That's why people can irritate you. That's why people can disappoint you. That's why people can dishonor you. That's why people can look down upon you. Because you see, you have not been able to validate yourself and approve of self as a powerful economy. You are the resource. So you see, the truth is powerful. The energy is powerful. And the economy, which is a resource, is so powerful. And now, the next thing this thing will do, let me tell you, this thing I'm telling you can change your landscape, whether in your relational stuff, whether it's a work life, whether it's your professional life, whether it's your career, anywhere you're having difficulty, mentally, weakness, and all that, this thing will correct it. If you know the truth, which is honesty, when you become honest to yourself and find principles, you get into energy, you understand your energy, your composition, you of course understand your frequency, you understand your vibration, your thought and your belief system, which are very critical. Then you begin to talk about your economy. Then the next thing he does is you systemized your life. Most people do not have a system, and anything goes. And once a man is not systemized, you realize that you can fall for anything. What do you mean by systemized? You see, a man needs to understand identity. A good name is better than silver and gold. If you have not been able to procure through revelational knowledge or through inspirational or however discover your true identity, you've not started good life. Life doesn't offer us what we wish or desire. Life responds to identity. Your ability to fight a good fight of faith is a function of your identity. I know the master says something, who do men say I am? So primarily, the first structure that will be able to give you access to wellness, satisfaction, good life, good outing, good performance is understanding who you are. One of the greatest miracles that happened to me is I operate from my identity. And I'm not ready to mortgage it. I define events by my identity. For instance, I know I'm an enricher. If for any reason somebody disappoint me or what we call take advantage, I don't call it you have taken advantage. I call it I've enriched that person. You see, it's not what people do. No, it is the definition and the relationship of what the people do. That's what affects you. So it's not what they do that affects you. It's because you don't interpret it or relate with it from your identity. So if I'm a light or an enlightener, right? Or I'm a learner. You see, when adversity hits me, I'm not going to name it adversity. I'm going to be able to interpret it from a place of learning. What has this adversity or contrary thing come to teach me? You see how your life is enriched by just understanding your identity. Identity is so powerful that if you get it, your business, it can shape your business. You don't need to chase a lot of things when you find your identity. Like for instance, I'm a builder. If I get to the kitchen now and I find out that there's nothing and I can just lay hand on apple on few things, what happened? My relationship with the scarcity, which what people worship, we worship scarcity. The greatest problem of man is that we worship scarcity. And that's what I've influenced it, but let me not go too far. But identity is so fine. It will define you. If you are feeling weak, you lack identity structure. If you are fearful, you lack identity structure. If you're always feeling that you are rejected, you have not accepted who you are. You don't know who you are yet. So you see, in systemizing, the first thing is your identity. I love my identity. I can wake up and tell you I'm a builder, I'm an enricher, I'm an enlightener, I'm a learner, I'm a lover, I'm an igniter. And you see, the more you get this relationship with yourself, it defines your economy, your resourcefulness, because you are the first resource. Then the second one, what it does is that it will show you that identity doesn't think about what to get. Identity thinks about what to give. It's an assignment. The structure of life is an assignment. Of course, I learned that. I learned this from the Good Bible in Matthew chapter 20, verse 28. It says, for even the Son of Man, have you now seen that there's always an identity? That's why I say, even the Son of Man, it provokes responsibility, it provokes ownership, it provokes, like foundation. Even the Son of Man did not come expecting to be served, but to serve and give his life in exchange for the salvation of many. See, if you've been served with breakfast and it affects you, you do not know who you are. If you feel warm over your job, you don't know who you are. And honestly, this slave mentality has devalued us. Because you see, true identity can only find expression, not expectation. And that's the real value. So if you say that you're valuable, first of all, you have to be valuable to yourself. And now your value, but like we say, to be served, but not to be served, and give his life in exchange. That's the true life. So if you're now like a husband or a boss, you are always looking for who will honor you. You don't know who you are. That's why identity is so powerful. Identity will provoke and fuel assignment. It's focusing on assignment. Assignment means, what am I serving? And that's why I say, if you are spiritual and have no purpose, your spirituality is meaningless. Because your true spirituality will find expression in purpose. And what is purpose? Service. If you're not serving, you're dormant. Because you are preloaded in your identity. Your identity will preload you will equip you with everything that you require to serve, to be in purpose. And that's why they talk about find your purpose. But you can't find your purpose until you find your identity. And once you find your identity, it begins to shape the purpose, which is an assignment. And what it does, it gives you clear direction about your life. When people talk about have a vision, it's only peripheral. Because you see, if you are shallow-minded, you don't have vision. Your vision is so powerful because it is fueled by an assignment, which is authored by your identity. And this is one of the things that have really revolutionized how I live my life. And that's why I'm always in that mode of giving. Every opportunity that you see me give, not because I have, because I understand who I am. So I cannot be an enricher and I can't find an assignment where I enrich people. And that's what I'm doing. Because I'm an enlightener. And that enlightenment is as a function, it is now what propel me. That's what I say. Don't find passion. Passion is energy. Find purpose. Let purpose be what will ignite your passion. If you don't find purpose, which is assignment, it's like you are driving a car. It's the engine. If you say fuel, there's no fuel. If you have a fuel and the engine is corrupt, the fuel cannot move the car. It's the engine that will move the car, but fuel will energize it. So you see, it's important you have vision. Clearly, you have a vision, and my vision is betterment. So meaning that if somebody offer me a speech, I will pass it through First of all, my identity and my assignment. So words cannot hurt you because you see the barrier is filtered through your identity. I've not come to be served. I've come to serve. It's a paradox. So when people say they rejected me, they didn't reject you. You perceive that they rejected you. And you internalize it by your own filter. And that's why you are rejected. Nobody can hurt you. Because their words have no meaning until you give it meaning. Because you are meaning yourself. So you see, when we talk about systemizing your life, is the ability to find your identity. Your identity warehouses weapons, arsenals, tools that can give you access to well life. Then, of course, what it does that you have assignments. An assignment gives you vision. And what it does, it eventually creates embodiment of rules, what we call personal law, which is rooted in personal values. If you are confused about choices, it's because you have not articulated your value system. Your value system will shape your decisions and choices fundamentally. And that's why it's good to have a system, life system. Life system will be, if it's introduced like you have disappointment, you know that disappointment becomes a source of wisdom and enrichment. Because see, as a learner, you just interpret it from your identity. And now I'm funded by assignment. What can I do with this? What does this serve? How can I serve this? And once you start thinking like this, that's what they call reversal thinking. The potency of reversal thinking is something that if you explore in yourself, you will reverse all the trend that have trended in your life in terms of disappointment. That's what you can see, like probably your wife is sick. You are not going to kill yourself. You know that you can say, I'm a healer. And what does healer? Healer will activate compassion. And it's the state of your energy that you transmit to your wife that brings healing. The comfort. Or probably your spouse has lost a job. Don't interpret it from the place of expectation. Interpret it from the place of your identity and your assignment and your vision about it. Then first of all, now you have systemized it because you see it's functioning through your vision. Like my vision is betterment. I want to see people better. I want to see the car better. I want to see my environment better. So it means that I can convert what is termed as abuse through the faculty of my value system into betterment. That's how these things work. Value system is such a component of your life system that if you internalize them, like I have, a simple thing, mine is simple, betterment. The second one is balance. Balance means I'm in a state of equilibrium, that unstoppable place, that unshakable place, where external triggers and stimulus have minimal effect. Of course, it gives you stability. And once you find stability, you can really, function well. People are imbalanced, and that's why you're upset. And that's why life affects you. Because you're not balanced again. You are treated to, you're no longer in the center. We call it centering. You're not grounded. When you're grounded, you can take a decision. But you see, have you noticed that most of the time that you have a regret? You regret because you were out of balance. You were overtaken by offense. You were overtaken by disappointment. You were overtaken by, failure. So value system is so critical. If you don't have a value system documented, people say they have a value system. Mine is betterment. The next one is balance. The next one is contentment. Not at any point in my life have I found contentment like I found contentment. In fact, sometimes I'm hungry and I can be contented with water. And honestly, I find satisfaction. Today, we went for a side, and at some point, I was hungry and I asked for water. I was so contented. So you see, what fill you is not substance. What fill you is the connection to the substance. It's not food that satisfies you. It's not, oh, I'm eating this, I'm eating that satisfy you. Feeling is not tangible. It's a mental construction, the mental relationship that satisfies you. The next one is calmness. Calmness is that state of tranquility where there's an inner peace and you don't even want to lose it. When you begin to interpret life from a place of calmness, you live a very solid, very attractive, very quality, very meaningful, very authentic life. And the next one is empowerment. Empowerment means for me personal growth, personal development. I need to empower myself. I need to empower others. I like to empower others. Have you now seen how you can change everything just through your system, value system? The other one is growth. You cannot have a meaningful life unless you live internally. Your internal growth is evident. Until you're transformed, nothing changes in your life. You will just be in the same cycle. If you've been in a certain cycle, you're not transforming. Growth is so essential that if anything that you're going to pursue, if there's anything to pursue, it's to pursue growth. And growth is not status, so it's not buying car. Let me tell you, happiness is not associated with things. Happiness is associated with gratitude. And it's a mental attitude that can differ anything. If you want to change anything in this world, get into gratitude mode. If you want to amplify your life, ascend to a higher ground, is gratitude. That's a power that you are growing. Growing that when something happens to you, what you call negative, and you become grateful for that thing to even happen to you, it changes the effect. If you're hungry, be grateful. Patrick, what are you saying? When you're bitter about hunger, it dulls your creativity. You become so poisonous that you cannot allow abundance to flow into you. If your job is not paying you, become grateful about your job. It changes your mental attitude. Now, gratitude allows. Ingratitude despairs. And that's one cardinal thing. If you want to change anything, find your gratitude. And gratitude can only come from, have you seen the sequence I'm saying? Betterment, balance, contentment, calm, empowerment, then growth. Then the next one is simplicity. Simplification brings you quality. In fact, that's where you're untouched by events of life. The reason why we are touched by triggers and stimulus is because we are complex. The complexity of life brings a lot of problems, burden. That's why I see most people who are light-hearted are not complex. They are simple. Simple heart, light heart, letting go, easy to let go. They are not crowded by a lot of history or experiences. They live in the now. They are so simple in food, in dressing, in everything is simple, and they are very productive. They are efficient. And when you see them internally, that's why you see they're never even in a hurry. One of the best way to age is hurry. One of the best way to age is hurry. You are so much in a hurry. You are accelerating. You are pushing boundary like you are 10. You want to be 15. You are doing 15 things. It's old age. You are just 15. You want to do what 25 people are doing. 25 years old. It's old age. It now means you are communicating to your system. And that's what people don't know, that you see, your actions determine the feeling, and the body is instructed by your feeling. That's why the more you are depressed, the more you kill yourself. The more you're angry, the more you kill your system. The more you're resentful, the more you kill your system. The more you live in bitterness, you think that bitterness is a justification. That's why I always ask, do you want to be right, or do you want to be healthy? Every time you want to be right, have you noticed that it will impact on your feelings? And your feelings will impact on your general system. That's what impacts on your immune system. And your health is jeopardized. You become more ineffective because you see you're being drained. This is mental health. And please take your note, pause, ask questions where you need to ask. We can get your feedback. Now, the next one, along the line of mine, is steadfastness. People are not ready to be patient. And one of the things that changed a lot about me to become more patient is when I heard, with patience you possess your possession. That means impatient, you are losing a lot. And in this part of this world, people are so impatient with other people. Impatient, that's why we're always speaking. That's why there's so much noise. That's why we're restless. That's why we cannot be still. That's why we can't be calm. That's why we cannot just, I hope I'm making sense. So, but this is where we are going today. I want to really ask a question. Please, are you a creator or are you a beggar? Are you a creator or are you a beggar? We need to define this because they will help our mental health. And I feel too much that we have unconsciously moved into beggarship without knowing. We have consistently moved on a daily basis into the beggar status. We're begging to be liked. We're begging to be approved. We're begging to be honored. We're begging to be respected. We're begging for attention. We're begging for wealth. Are you a beggar or a creator? This will have an impact on your mental life. So let me bring it home so that we can have a pattern to it. You are made up of in three parts. First of all, there's what I call the spirit self. We need to understand it. And once you understand it, you begin to understand that you are bigger than what you think. We beg for life. We beg to sleep. We beg to be recognized. We beg for attention. We beg for love. We beg for promotion. We beg. And what it does is that, number one, we find out that you are men-pleasing. You are proving on a daily basis that you're a man or a woman. You are pretending. And these things have, you're overperforming. When you beg, when you're a beggar, you seek for attention. But when you're a creator, you give attention. Now go back to when we're talking about, I've not come to be served. I've come to serve. Your headache is more in seeking than in serving. Can I say that again? Every time you have headache, you are seeking. Every time you're serving, you see that you have life. So life is not in seeking, life is in serving. If there's anybody that is troubling you, let's look at that somebody is rejecting you. Begin to accept that person. Change the dynamics. Transform your mental capacity from seeking to serving. The dynamics change. Even the person that you are seeking for attention will begin to seek attention from you. So this is how it is. When you begin to understand your spiritual self is so powerful that it lives in infinity. It lives in an abundance. And that's why the good book said, the enemy come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. Why? He wants to change your entire perception about life to seeking. And what's seeking? External seeking. And not internal seeking. Have you noticed that if you got a new job, you hardly focus on yourself, that they have employed you to bring value. You're seeking to see who is accepting me. Are they accepting me? Or they not accepting me? Are they doing this? Are they doing this? Oh, they are like this, they are like this. Why? You're seeking. And it put pressure on you. You begin to perform. You begin to prove. You begin to pretend. You begin to, please. Are they bad in their own? No. But the problem is that if you are not creating, creative mood, then you're begging. So when you say you're disappointed about people, you're begging, and begging aligns with what we call control system. Because control creates tension. It creates separation. But let's say I've understood my spirit that lives in infinity, and this spirit is in abundance. It lives in completeness. It lives in wholeness. It lives in unification. It doesn't live in separation. It doesn't seek that I'm different. That's where I'm going. When you hurt, you have separated from yourself from the person who is hurting you. If you become that person, then you see the two of you cannot hurt each other. But that's the bigger thing. Let me not confuse you. Let's look about this spirit self. If you understand your spirit self, now, when you serve, when you are in serving, your spirit self is conditioning your mental self. Because the true life, between the spirit and the material self, is the mental structure. Because the mental structure is in between. That's where you process. That's what gives you definition, how you relate. The story in the mind, the state of the mind, the sensitivity of the mind, the strategy of the mind is being funded by your material self or by your spirit self. That's where I'm going today. Every time you're disappointed, what happens is that your material self is feeding your mind. Every time you're angry, it's the external self that is funding the mind. Every time you feel that you are not worthy, have you noticed it is comparison, it is measurement? These two things, it is comparison, it is measurement, and it's the external validation that is fueling your mind. Every time that you said, oh, you were rejected, have you noticed that it was the seeking of approval that had now polluted in your mind or controlled your mind, and that's why you're defining that you are dead. So you see, where I'm going today is, can we sit down and analyze it? when you hear something like that, what have I hid in my heart that I might not sin? Sin means disorder. That means I might not move out from my spirit self that will fund my life. And I'm not getting external funding by whether people accept me, whether people treated me badly, whether people have honored me, whether he loves me or she doesn't love me, or she doesn't respect me, she doesn't honor me, or blah, blah, blah. That is external feeling to your mind, which is the direct input. There's an external input and there's an internal input. Let me break it down. It said, the word I give unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So every time you hurt, check your material self is funding it. But if you encounter your spirit self that is connected to divine instruction, what happened? You find that you are at peace, inner peace and balance. You are stable. You are able to fund and be able to confront. That's why it said, whatever is born of God overcometh the world. This is our victory. Even our faith in Christ. And we operate in two classical faiths. It takes faith to call people to say they disappoint you, and you feel it. It also takes faith to understand that by two immutable things it's impossible for God to lie. And so he started funding you. And when I say people get upset, and they have never questioned what is funding their upset, he said, I'm natural. Have you noticed that when people want to give excuse to their weak place, they say, I'm human. Human means that you are connecting to your matter self. What is funding you is external, not internal. Is your outlook, not your in-look. You are outsourcing, not insourcing. As simple as they are. In fact, we're even going far. That's what I'm saying, that if your value, which is spirit, begin to fund your mind consistently, you will realize that it will be difficult when he said, I give unto you power to tread upon serpents, scorpions, and all the voices of the enemy. Nothing of them has a capacity to harm you. What it means that what you are being controlled is your spirit self is controlling you, is funding your mind, is giving volatility. That's why he said, guard your heart, for out of it are the issues of life. So life doesn't happen to us. Every time life happens to you is external. These are principles that if you begin to practice on a daily basis, you become a superpower. And these things that are not being taught, because sometimes people find it quite difficult to be able to decipher between the in-source and out-source. And that's why I'm asking, are you a creator or are you a beggar? Beggar will make you to be weak, powerless. It will make you to be irritated. So where we're going will be, every time something happens to you, don't be quick to react. In fact, reactivity shows that you're externally affected. Every time you're reacting, you know that you are not in control, you've been overtaken. Your matter self is funding your mind and has capitalized it and hold you down. That's why you see, how is it that a man or your spouse or your friend that you love so much, suddenly you can hate that person. You can't even stand that person again. Why? External validation, external approval, external love, external acceptance have affected you. And that's why you have lost your originality, which is your identity, which you have lost your assignment, you've lost your vision and your value system. You see how they are all making them together. So if you don't find your identity, you are confused in life. And that's what they call identity crisis. And one of the things that happened is that's why there are fundamental things that kill you. Identification. Identification, when you say, oh, I'm weak, I'm frustrated, I'm helpless, nobody is helping me. Typical of the man who had been close to a river for 38 years. He was looking for external help. Meanwhile, within him, he didn't know that he had the force to push himself. That's a typical example. He was funded externally, and he was going to be rotten to death. Of course, eventually, a man came outside, and he just said, what is the first thing? I had no man. That's a beggar. I gave instant, I studied it. There's a lady who had a potential, big potential, never recognizes who she was, never talk about assignment. Assignment is what is within me to exchange to the people. I can't contend what is another person, what is inside. And so she was looking for help. And he got to this professional who would have helped him in terms of a seer, who he think can just command, pour oil on her, and everything changes. It just got to the prophet and said, I need help. The prophet said, what do you have inside? He said, I don't have nothing but XYZ. He said, go back. Have you now seen? Go and find the truth there, your working truth. Go and find the economy, which is the resources. Go and find the energy, which is, the zeal to put that. Now go and put a system around it. And then find your identity, which is put a name around there. And that name gives you assignment. That assignment gives you vision. Vision gives you value. And you see, it transforms completely everything. Why are we outsourcing everything? Why? The question, are you a beggar? Are you a creator? And you see, one of the things about beggarhood, it thrives on a worship scarcity. And that scarcity will create desperation. Every time you're desperate, you are outwardly looking and you become a beggar. Desperate to be married, desperate to get a job, desperate to be acknowledged, desperate to buy this, desperate to buy that. What form desperation is scarcity, because you're worshiping scarcity. And what it does is introduce perpetual fear. You see, these three things, if you master them, scarcity, desperation, and fear. But how do we reverse this? One of the things that have really helped me every time I find scarcity is to insource an idea of gratitude. Gratitude is a tool of acceptance. Accepting the reality and not deny it, and not resist it. Because attachment, clinging to an ideal how things should be, identifying with the wrong thing, which is external, and measurement, and resistance is an indication that you are not a creator, but that you're a beggar. So when you become acceptant, what it does is introduce you to something like abundant. When you have an abundant mind form, your life changes. Because you are not operating again from scarcity. That means that if somebody doesn't give you attention, you give them attention. When you give attention, you're operating from what? Abundance. You now see why people who serve from abundance, but people who seek from scarcity. And this is the dimension about it. And you see, when gratitude comes, what it does, it gives you cool-headed. I read something recently in titles. It said, relax. Relax. You're covered. Nothing missing, nothing broken. It's in relaxed state, it's in calm state that you find productive self, wellness, satisfaction. That's where you connect. You have inner connection because you see, what beggar does, it disconnects you from your originality, from your abundance, from your infinite, from that oceanic disposition, that way you are. And you see, the other thing that ultimately what creation does and beggar does, the beggar doesn't trust. They don't trust the highest good. They don't trust God. They don't trust infinite goodness. They don't trust infinite prosperity. They don't trust infinite wellness. They don't trust infinite love. And the difference between creative person and beggar person is the creative person flow in what we call infinite grace, knowing that there is a superior being that controls your life. That's why it is He who works in us, both to will and to do according to His own pleasure. So every time you're angry, you are not allowing the abundance of the infinite to walk into you, the infinite intelligence to walk through you. So I wake up and say, I allow the infinite wisdom, intelligence to walk through me. And it does give you access to infinite grace. But beggar, because of scarcity, because of fear, because of desperation, that's why they are seeking. But let me tell you, we can reverse it. Had you gratitude, calm, wherever you are, kulu kulu, kulu temper. Everything is temporary. The lack is temporary. You don't have a child, it's temporary. You don't have a job, it's temporary. You can't find love, we don't really find love, we give love. If you start giving more love, you're living in abundance. That's why you're a creator of love. But when you continue to seek love, you're operating from scarcity, you're operating from desperation, you're operating from fear. But what we want to reverse is a place of gratitude, is a place of calmness, is a place of trust. These three dimensions can revolutionize your life and bring the migraine down, because at the end of the day, you are much more than you think you are. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm excited to share insight. And just go back again, listen to this again and again, and ask yourself, am I a beggar or am I a creator? Thank you so much. Dwell in goodness. I will invite you into higher life.